People whisper about me in every room I walk into. I know what they've been told, but the truth is darker, uglier, and it's something I can't take back. I'm not sure anyone should know.
Welcome to Reddit Toxic Family Telltales channel. New episode every day.
I woke up one morning and did what I always do, grabbed my phone, checked Instagram. And then my whole world stopped. Overnight, my account had dropped from 1.2 million followers to barely 200,000. Just gone. And the comments? I could barely breathe reading them. People I'd never met were calling me a monster, a criminal, telling me I deserved to die. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I scrolled through my feed, desperate to see what could have set this off. But all I saw were the same posts I'd always made: skincare ads, a couple shots from my Miami trip last week, lifestyle stuff. Nothing political, nothing offensive. Just me. The same me I'd been online for years. But the comments didn't care. Before I finally shut them off, every single one was accusing me of being some kind of evil person who belonged in prison. Then it escalated. Someone leaked my address. Suddenly people were showing up outside my house, screaming, throwing rocks at my windows. One night I walked outside and found "Predator" spray-painted across my car in dripping red letters. And the brands, oh God, the brands. Within hours, my inbox was flooded with termination emails. The makeup company I'd partnered with for 2 years? They cut me off, citing a morality clause violation, but they wouldn't even say what I supposedly did. Instead, they slapped me with a lawsuit for $3 million and somehow managed to freeze my accounts through an emergency order. My athletic wear sponsor demanded I return everything and erase their name from all my platforms. Just like that, I went from being their golden girl to untouchable. I called my manager, practically begging her to explain what was happening. But she was just as lost as me. She'd spent the entire morning on the phone with panicked brands, every single one cutting ties, every single one refusing to say why. I thought maybe I could at least count on my best friend, Hazel. But when I called, she didn't pick up. Instead, she sent me this cold text: "I need space to process what I learned about you. I can't believe you've been hiding your true self all this time." I asked her what she was talking about, but before I could get an answer, she blocked me. By day 3, I was a ghost in my own city. Someone recognized me in a coffee shop, screamed at me, then threw a steaming cup of coffee straight into my face, while live streaming the whole thing like it was some kind of spectacle. Out of desperation, I hired a crisis manager, someone who specializes in cleaning up public image disasters. She combed through everything, looking for the smoking gun, the viral post, the damning video, the gotcha clip that started it all. But there was nothing. No original accusation. No evidence. Just this tidal wave of hate crashing out of nowhere. And after a week of trying to shield me, she quit too. She told me she'd never seen anything like this, and then admitted her other clients were dropping her because she was associated with me. She left in tears after getting death threats of her own. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just cancelled. I was erased. I started to wonder if maybe someone had made a deep fake of me doing something unspeakable, some fabricated video circulating out there, destroying my name. So I spent days glued to my laptop, reverse-searching every photo and clip I could find, scrolling until my eyes burned. I even hired a digital forensics expert. After combing through every corner of the internet, she came back with a flat, almost apologetic tone. "There's nothing. No fake content. No altered footage. Nothing at all." It didn't matter. People closest to me had already made up their minds. My mom called me one night, her voice trembling. "How could you?" she sobbed. When I begged her to tell me what she thought I'd done, she just whispered, "The evidence is undeniable. I need time to process." Then she hung up. My sister went public. She posted on Facebook that she was cutting all ties with me. Within days, she dropped out of college. Other students had found out we were related and started harassing her every time she stepped onto campus. My dad's business? Gone. Every client bailed within a week. Desperate, I tried to speak for myself. Posted online asking why I was suddenly so hated, asking for specifics, for anything. The responses were colder than ice. People accusing me of playing dumb, asking if I was seriously pretending not to know. Even my home wasn't mine anymore. The influencer house where I'd been living called a meeting without me and told me to move out immediately. "The other creators don't feel safe around you," the house manager said. When I started packing, everyone stayed locked behind their doors like I was a plague. The manager even called the police and live-streamed my removal as a warning to other influencer houses about harboring predators. And the digital guillotine kept falling. My YouTube channel demonetized. TikTok permanently banned me for violating community guidelines. My Patreon collapsed overnight. Every subscriber canceled, some demanded refunds, and a group even filed a class action lawsuit claiming emotional distress for ever supporting me. Then the banks cut me off. Credit cards canceled. Blacklisted from every major bank. My podcast co-hosts released an episode without me, saying they couldn't platform someone like that. 3 months later, I wasn't just canceled, I was untouchable. Unemployable. Broke. living out of my car because my parents had finally thrown me out after their house was vandalized for the 5th time. This time someone tried to set it on fire while they were inside. I started applying to regular jobs under fake names, retail, grocery stores, anything, but somehow employers always figured out who I was. Even the local supermarket told me they couldn't hire someone with my reputation. And the scariest part? The attacks didn't stop. I'd been physically assaulted 3 different times by strangers who recognized me. I kept thinking, what did I do? What could possibly be so bad that it erased my life without a trace? I'd finally hit the point where I'd stopped trying to solve it. Whatever it was. My brain felt like static from weeks of searching, begging, and being ignored. And then, out of nowhere, a DM popped up. No profile picture. No followers. Just one chilling line. "You're not the first influencer this has happened to." Before I could even reply, the account vanished. I tried to shrug it off as another troll, but a few hours later a second message came through, this time with nothing but a time and an address. No explanation. No threats. Just coordinates. And I was desperate enough to go. The location was an old warehouse district, about 40 minutes from the Walmart where I'd been sleeping in my car. As I drove there, the sun was dipping low, throwing long, jagged shadows across the cracked pavement. The buildings looked like skeletons, broken windows, graffiti dripping down the walls. My engine stayed running while my fingers gripped the pepper spray I'd bought weeks ago. I was so on edge I kept checking my mirrors every few seconds, convinced someone was following me. My hands were trembling as I typed the address into a text to my old crisis manager, even though she'd blocked me months ago. At least if something happened, there'd be a breadcrumb trail. I snapped pictures of the building and the street signs, started my phone's voice recorder, and slid it into my pocket. The metal door at the front was already cracked open. Every instinct screamed don't go in, but I pushed it anyway. Inside, the air smelled like rust and damp concrete. Giant machines sat silent like sleeping beasts, and thick pillars disappeared into the dark. Then she appeared. A woman stepped out from behind one of the columns. My heart slammed into my throat, and for a second I was ready to bolt. But she raised her empty hands slowly, palms out. Her face looked worn, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back like she'd given up on style, but her voice was steady when she said, "My name's Reika." She pulled out her phone and showed me her Instagram from 2 years ago, 800,000 followers. Swipe. Her current account, barely 3,000. The graph of her follower count looked just like mine, the overnight cliff dive from everything to nothing. She explained that she'd been tracking other people this had happened to, at least a dozen so far. She'd been living off her dwindling savings for 8 months, trying to figure out who or what was behind it. I spilled everything. The words poured out of me, the 1,000,000 followers gone overnight, the $3 million lawsuit, my parents' house nearly burning down, 3 months of sleeping in my car. She didn't interrupt. Just nodded and took notes on a tablet that wasn't even connected to Wi-Fi, like she'd heard it all before. Then she said something that made the hairs on my arms stand up. We had to start documenting everything the right way, and we had to stop leaving digital trails. She handed me an actual paper list of the records I needed to gather, old school, pen on paper, and warned me to use only cash from now on. She knew a motel owner who didn't ask questions. "It's safe," she said. "You can stay there tonight." The thought of a Rayal bed after months of curling up in my back seat hit me so hard my eyes stung. I had to look away so she wouldn't see. Reika flipped open a beat-up flip phone, dialed a number, and quietly arranged everything. Then she handed me a scrap of paper with an address 20 minutes away. "There's a room waiting," she said. And for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel: hope. The next morning, I woke up staring at a stained motel ceiling, wondering for a split second where I was. For that brief moment, everything felt normal. But then it all slammed back into me like a freight train: the hate, the lawsuits, the feeling of being radioactive. My own manager had vanished from my life. Crisis firm had quit. My family had cut me off as if I were a stranger they'd just discovered lurking in their house. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, breaking the silence. It was a text from Reika. She'd found a journalist, Logan Bray. He wrote about tech companies and their secret systems. She said he was different, careful, and thorough, not one of those clout-chasing bloggers who twist your story for clicks. She'd already reached out to him, testing the waters, and thought he might actually listen. I didn't dare use my old accounts, so I drove to the nearest library, a musty, quiet space where no one recognized me, and signed onto a public computer. I set up fresh email addresses that couldn't be linked to my name. Every document I could still get my hands on went into a new cloud drive: the termination letters from brands, the $3 million lawsuit paperwork, screenshots of thousands of death threats. I felt sick watching my entire life shrink into neat folders with labels like legal and harassment evidence. This wasn't a career anymore, it was a crime scene file. Back at the motel, I spread everything out across the bed under the dim yellow lamp. Contracts, letters, paper clips holding together years of deals. One by one, I read them, highlighter in hand. Every single termination letter accused me of violating a morality clause, but none of them specified what I'd done. And then something clicked. The wording. It was identical. The makeup brand's letter matched the athletic brand's letter word for word in the key sections. Same phrases, same sentences, as if someone had copy-pasted from a master template. My highlighter streaks turned the pages into a lattice of yellow lines, a pattern that screamed, "This is not random." The next morning, Reika showed up with 2 steaming coffees. She set one down and leaned over my shoulder as I showed her the highlighted documents. Her eyes sharpened. Without saying a word, she pulled out her laptop and started cross-checking my emails with screenshots she'd collected from other victims. Then her finger froze over the trackpad. "Wait. Zoom in there," she said. In the corner of one email, buried in the metadata, was a tiny string of text, risk flag 7749. She ran a search across my entire inbox. The same code appeared in 5 different brand emails. Her face went pale. "Companies subscribe to shared databases that flag influencers as risks," she murmured. She tapped the screen, "this looks like an internal identifier. Some system is flagging you before the brands even make a decision." I felt my stomach drop. Someone or something had marked me. That evening, the burner phone Reika gave me buzzed across the motel nightstand like a trapped bee. I answered on the second ring. A man's voice, calm, worn around the edges, introduced himself as Logan, the journalist Reika had mentioned. He didn't waste time. He wanted my timeline again, down to the minute if I could manage it. So I walked him through everything while staring at the water-warped motel wallpaper. The exact morning my followers fell off a cliff, the timestamps on each platform banning me when the brand emails hit, which ones arrived first, which ones used that same canned morality language. His keyboard clacked steadily in my ear, proof someone was finally taking notes on my life like it mattered. He gave me an encrypted email and told me to send every file I had. "All of it," he said. "Originals, screenshots, headers." Promised I would. The next day, Reika slid her laptop toward me across the sticky motel desk. On the screen were screenshots of death threats sent to a lawyer who'd briefly agreed to take her case last year. The messages were vicious, specific, personal, the kind of cruelty that makes your stomach fold in on itself. They promised to ruin the woman's practice and visit her family if she kept helping Reika. I felt a wave of guilt for even thinking about pulling more people into this. But Reika shook her head. "We can't do this alone," she said. "That's the point. They make you isolate." So I started dialing. I used different burner phones for each call like we were in a spy movie but with cheaper props. I worked down a list that, according to rumors in our tiny underground of victims, Isabel had once shared with others. Firm number 1. The receptionist put me on hold to check availability, then came back with a flat, "We're not taking new clients." Firm number 2. I got maybe 30 seconds into my story before they decided they don't handle this type of case, even though their website literally said reputation and defamation law in bold letters. Firm number 3 sounded promising until I said my name. Suddenly they remembered a very full caseload. Firm number 4. Conflict of interest. With who? They wouldn't say. I'd never used them. I hadn't even heard of them until 5 minutes before dialing. 2 days of that. 2 days of no's, of clicks, of practiced politeness that felt like a velvet rope snapping shut in my face. Finally, Reika got me a real contact. Isabel Rainey, a lawyer who specialized in tech accountability, translation, the kind of cases big firms refuse because they like their cozy vendor relationships. Isabel warned me right away her resources were thin and her calendar thinner, but she agreed to a video consult. During the call, she didn't interrupt. Not once. She just listened, pen moving, stopping only to ask precise questions, dates, attachments, whether I had full email headers where the files were stored, the order of each ban and termination. Felt like handing over the black box after a crash. When we hung up, she said she'd review what I sent and set expectations. This would be slow, ugly, and dangerous. I appreciated the honesty more than any pep talk. 3 days later, the burner rattled again. Logan. He'd gone through everything, my files, Reika's notes, patterns from other cases. His voice had shifted, less tentative, more resolved. "The pattern's too consistent across victims to be random," he said. "Different brands, different platforms, same timing, same language, same internal markers. This isn't organic. Someone's coordinating it." And for the first time, the fear in my chest made room for something sharper. If there's a pattern, there's a source. Now we just had to survive long enough to find it. Logan's next call came early in the morning. His voice was brisk, caffeinated, like someone who'd been up all night reading. He wanted everything, not just my files but Reika's entire archive of other victims. Screenshots, letters, timelines, all of it. "If I can compare the cases side by side," he said, "I might be able to see what no one else can." That afternoon, Isabel rang. Her voice was calm but firm, like a teacher who knows the lesson is going to be hard. She explained something called data access requests, formal legal petitions that force platforms and vendors to hand over the information they've collected on you. "This might show us who originally flagged you as a risk," she said, "and more importantly, why." She sent me templates, each one full of precise, almost surgical language. For the next 2 days, I practically lived at the library. I hunched over a public computer filling out forms for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and 5 different reputation management vendors Isabel had identified. Each one required its own special phrasing, like a code word at a locked door. Every request needed notarized proof of identity, driver's license copies, signed affidavits. By the 3rd trip, the bank notary started greeting me by name. My hand cramped from so many signatures. Before mailing each packet, Isabel reviewed it line by line, tweaking clauses and footnotes so no company could toss it out on a technicality. We sent them by certified mail with tracking numbers, a paper trail of little green slips proving they'd been received. A week later, my burner buzzed with a text from Reka. Got someone who used to work inside one of these companies. Might talk. She set up an encrypted video chat. When the call opened on my laptop, a man appeared with his face blurred and his voice run through a low metallic filter. Tao Brooks. Even with the digital mask, he looked jumpy, eyes flicking off screen, fingers drumming like he was waiting for a knock at the door. I shouldn't be here, he said, voice vibrating through the distortion, but I can't watch it happen again. These systems, they're broken. I leaned closer to the screen, heart pounding. For the first time, someone from inside was speaking. And I had the feeling everything was about to change. Tao's voice, low and metallic through the filter, filled my motel room like a secret being whispered through a vent. He began laying it all out, how these risk feeds actually worked. Automated systems scanning millions of posts every hour, hunting for keywords, hashtags, or behavioral patterns that might suggest someone was dangerous or brand unsafe. Once a person's profile got flagged, he said, the mark didn't stay in one place. It spread like wildfire. Through something called API connections, every company subscribed to that feed got the alert within hours. One bad flag, Tao said, and the whole network thinks you're toxic before lunch. He shared his screen. On it was a diagram of a sprawling web of arrows and nodes. At the center sat a glowing hub labeled Risk Assessment Feed, with dozens of red lines radiating out to brand logos, platforms, and vendor names. It looked like a disease map, red streaks branching out like poison through a bloodstream. He zoomed in on the timestamps. Here, he said. Minutes, not days. One system flags you high risk, everyone else's system flips red before anyone even blinks. Then he opened actual screenshots of the interface companies used to evaluate influencers. My stomach twisted. It was literally a list of names with little lights next to them, green for safe, red for cut ties immediately. No explanations. No context. Just a signal, drop them. The worst part. Tao leaned closer to his webcam. This thing misfires constantly. Matches on partial usernames. If someone named Sarah_123 posts something truly awful, the system will often flag Sarah_124 just because it looks close enough. No one double checks. Manual review slows them down. Slowing down costs money. And money always wins. My pulse pounded in my ears. I thought about the identical letters, the instant bans, my family's house almost burning down. All triggered by a red light somewhere in a database. They know about these errors, Tao said, his distorted voice dipping lower. But fixing it would cost millions. In their math, a few ruined lives are worth avoiding one real scandal. I stared at the screen, the red web still glowing, and realized for the first time this wasn't a random mob. It was a system, huge, invisible, and blind, that had swallowed me whole. And now, at least, I finally knew its name. Reka cut in gently while Tao was still talking. I've been keeping a list, she said. Names, dates, platforms, brands, all the other people this has happened to. She explained there was a tiny encrypted chat group where victims compared notes and tried to trace patterns like survivors mapping a wildfire. She could try to get me added if I wanted, but warned me some members were furious and desperate, not always kind to newcomers. I hesitated. After everything, trusting strangers online felt like handing them a knife. But the truth was, I needed to see their stories. I needed proof this was bigger than me. That night back at the motel, I sat cross-legged on the thin blanket with a stack of papers and colored pens. I started building a timeline by hand, every ban, every email, every strike. Red for platforms. Blue for brands. Green for lawsuits. Within an hour, the paper looked like a war map. And right away, something leapt out at me. Almost everything clustered around one weekend in March. Instagram banned me Friday night at 11:47 p.m. TikTok followed Saturday morning at 6:23 a.m. YouTube demonetized me Saturday afternoon at 2:15 p.m. Brand emails rolled in from Saturday evening through Sunday afternoon like dominoes falling in perfect, merciless order. Something had triggered the cascade that Friday night. But what? For the next 3 days, I worked the phones. Burner after burner, fake names, polite voices. Most calls ended the second I gave my real name. Click. Dial tone. Some didn't even bother with excuses. Finally, a crack. I got through to a young-sounding customer service rep at the athletic wear company. Her voice was barely a whisper. They got a confidential assessment packet about you that weekend, she said. But I can't, she broke off, then muttered. My supervisor's coming. I have to go. The line went dead. I sat there staring at the phone, heart hammering. It wasn't just mob rage. It wasn't just coincidence. Someone had sent out a packet. Someone had pushed the first domino. And now I had my first sliver of proof. The envelope showed up like a brick on my doorstep. Thick, heavy, stamped certified mail. For a heartbeat I thought maybe it was another lawsuit. But it was one of my data access requests finally coming back. Inside was a fat stack of papers, most of it drowned in black ink. Entire paragraphs gone, whole pages stamped proprietary or third-party confidential. It felt like holding a censored spy file. But then, on page 47, my eyes snagged on a single line they'd missed. A reference to an *** external vendor assessment, code PRE 749***, dated exactly that Friday night in March. The same code I'd seen buried in my termination emails. My hand trembled as I snapped a photo and fired it off to Isabel. She called me back within minutes. Her voice was sharper than I'd ever heard it. This is it. This is the thread. We can prove coordination now. Later, walking back to the motel after mailing off more requests, I noticed a dark sedan behind me. First I told myself it was nothing, just another car on the street. But when I turned right at the next corner, it turned too. When I crossed to the other side, it shadowed me. 3 blocks. Same distance. Same speed. My stomach went cold. I ducked into a convenience store, heart hammering, and found a dusty payphone. The receiver smelled like pennies. I dialed 911 and tried to explain, voice low and shaky, that someone was following me. The operator sounded bored, like I was ordering a pizza instead of calling for help. 2 officers showed up 20 minutes later, uniforms creased, eyes skeptical. They took a report but shrugged when I couldn't give them a license plate or concrete proof of threat. I handed them the case number from my previous harassment reports. One officer scribbled it down and said they'd add it to the file. By the time I finally left the store an hour later, the sedan was gone. The next day, Isabel went on the offensive. She sent what she called exfoliation letters, legal orders to 3 reputation vendors requiring them to preserve every scrap of data about me. If they delete anything now, she said, it's destruction of evidence. Criminal penalties. We'll know. The letters went out by certified mail with signature confirmation. Watching Isabel work, I realized she wasn't just defending me anymore. She was setting a trap. For the first time, it felt like maybe the system wouldn't get to erase me quietly. And if they were watching, they were about to learn I was done running. The night Reka finally got me added to that encrypted chat group felt like stepping into a room full of shattered mirrors. Every scroll was another version of my own nightmare. A fitness influencer lost everything because the system thought she was promoting dangerous diet pills. A travel blogger was erased after her username got linked to scammers she'd never even heard of. A gaming streamer lost his entire career because the algorithm mixed him up with someone posting illegal content. Different niches, different audiences, but the same story. Overnight destruction, identical termination letters with that vague morality language, and those cryptic risk codes flashing like digital scarlet letters. Logan had been digging deeper into the underbelly of the reputation intelligence industry. His trail kept circling back to a little firm called Verdict Tech, a company most people had never heard of but that quietly sold comprehensive risk assessment for brand safety. They bragged about monitoring millions of influencers in real time. Logan unearthed leaked documents from a former employee who'd sued them for wrongful termination, and there, plain as day, were our risk codes, appearing over and over in internal memos about something called the automated flagging pipeline. Then the second platform finally sent me my data export, 3 weeks late but better than nothing. I spent hours combing through endless lines of technical logs, my eyes blurring, until I found it. My account linked to a hashed entity ID that didn't match my actual username at all. It was like looking at someone else's digital fingerprint glued onto my identity. When I sent the file to Isabel, she called back almost immediately. Her voice was electric. This is it. This shows they mixed you up with somebody else. This is exactly what we've been saying. On our next video call, Tao shared his screen. Streams of code scrolled past as he explained how Verdict's system scanned millions of usernames across every platform looking for bad actors. He zoomed in on the part that did the matching. The logic looked like a toddler's math homework, primitive, sloppy. This is their algorithm, he said. It's garbage. It's basically guessing based on fragments. One partial match, one miskeyed ID, and boom, your whole digital life is redlined. Watching the code crawl across Tao's screen, I felt a strange mix of fury and relief. For months I'd thought some shadowy cabal had picked me out personally. But the truth was even worse. I wasn't destroyed by a vendetta. I was destroyed by a bug. And now we finally had proof. Tao's voice dropped even lower through the filter as he gave an example so simple it made my stomach knot. If someone named Sarah Rose 94 gets caught selling drugs on some random forum, he said, our system might flag every variation, Sarah Rose, even just anyone with Rose in their handle. He clicked, and on his screen another case appeared, a gaming streamer nuked overnight because the algorithm confused him with a crypto scammer who also had Wolf in his username. The brands never check, Tao said flatly. They just see the red light and cut ties to protect themselves. That night I went into our encrypted chat and posted a challenge. Check your entity IDs and usernames against the actual bad actors out there. Within hours, responses poured in like rain hitting a roof. A fitness coach found her profile tied to someone selling steroids with a similar handle. A food blogger discovered she'd been linked to a diet pill scammer because they both had healthy in their usernames. Case after case. Different industries, different audiences, the same broken matching. Every single person had been confused with an actual criminal or scammer through these sloppy systems. Patterns were identical, down to the timing, the cut-and-paste termination letters, the risk codes like digital fingerprints stamped on our names. We started documenting everything in a giant shared spreadsheet, dates, screenshots, codes, mislinked accounts. Isabel told us to treat it like evidence in a court case. Felt surreal, like building a crime board in some detective show, except the victims were us. With shaking hands, I decided to try one last time with my old manager. I sent her everything, the screenshots, the logs, the hashed entity IDs, the proof of the verdict tech errors. I begged her to just look at the evidence. 3 days later, a courier knocked on my motel door with a thick envelope. Inside was a formal cease and desist from her lawyer. It said any further contact would be considered harassment, and they'd seek a restraining order. Threatened legal action if I so much as mentioned her name in connection with what had happened. My hands trembled as I read it. She wasn't interested in the truth. She was terrified of the brands. Terrified enough to treat me like a threat instead of a victim. And standing there in that dim motel room, envelope crumpling in my fist, I realized just how deep this thing really went. Logan had been working his tech industry contacts for weeks, dialing every favor he'd ever banked. Most people hung up the moment he said, "Verdict Tech," like the name itself was toxic. But finally, someone cracked. A mid-level employee at a small athletic wear company agreed to meet him at a diner off the interstate. The source wouldn't let Logan record, wouldn't even give a last name, but over coffee in a corner booth they confirmed the nightmare. That weekend in March, their brand had received a risk assessment packet through its automated brand safety dashboard, my name included, along with hundreds of other influencers. The dashboard triggered automatic contract terminations without human review. And because every brand in their network got the same packet at the same time, the cascade hit like a digital tidal wave. Everyone dropped the flagged names within hours. Logan couldn't use the source's name in print, but it didn't matter. We finally had confirmation. The takedown had been coordinated, not random. Meanwhile, Isabel locked herself away for 3 days drafting formal demand letters, thick legally surgical letters addressed to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Verdict Tech, and 2 other reputation vendors we dug up. Brand Shield and Safety First. She cited state and federal statutes on defamation, tortious interference, negligent data handling, laying out chapter and verse. She demanded they disclose their assessment methods, all data they'd collected on me, and compensate for the damages their errors had caused. Every line had to be perfect, no hint of threats or sloppy wording they could use to dismiss us. She mailed each packet by certified mail with signature confirmation, building a legal paper trail like a fuse leading back to the source. That evening I walked back from picking up cheap takeout, plastic bag swinging, head down, and saw my motel door hanging open. My stomach dropped. The window beside it was shattered, glass glittering across the carpet like ice. The manager was already there, phone out, taking pictures. He looked grim. "Someone threw a brick while you were gone," he said. "We found it in the room, lying among the shards." Someone had scrawled one word across it in black marker, all caps. Predator. I stood there, bag of food still in my hand, feeling the motel's neon hum above me. For a moment, the whole world tilted. Even as we built our case, someone out there wanted me too scared to keep going. And I realized, not for the first time, that we were running out of time. The motel manager led me behind the front desk to his ancient desktop, the kind with a boxy monitor that hummed when it booted up. We sat shoulder to shoulder as the grainy footage played, a figure in a hoodie running up, hurling the brick, then bolting into a car that sped off before the camera could catch the plate. I called the police again, and waited 2 full hours before a patrol car rolled up. Another report, another case number. The officer glanced at the screen, scribbled a few notes, and said the same line I'd heard a dozen times. Without a clear face shot, there wasn't much they could do. But at least, as Isabel kept reminding me, every single report was another stone in the pile of evidence showing real-world harm caused by these false flags. 2 weeks after Isabel mailed the demand letters, Verdict Tech's legal team finally broke their silence. Their response was thick with lawyer speak, denials of wrongdoing, invocations of free speech protections for their risk assessments, but on page 3 was a nugget that made Isabel's eyes sharpen. They admitted, almost offhand, that they had discontinued their high-risk influencer feed 3 months ago due to accuracy concerns. Asterisk. They wouldn't say I'd been on that feed. But the timing lined up exactly with the weekend my life detonated. Isabel highlighted the paragraph and said quietly, "This is as close to a confession as we're going to get on paper." The other vendors, Brand Shield, Safety First, sent similar denials, all smothered in legal language designed to sidestep blame. And then things took a turn. Late one night, scrolling through my junk folder, I saw a subject line that froze me in place. "You deserve to know the truth." It was from an anonymous account. Attached was a set of files, what looked like internal Verdict Tech documentation. Diagrams. flowcharts, names, a map of their entire risk-scoring pipeline. I stared at the screen, pulse hammering, torn between opening it and closing the laptop forever. If it was real, it could blow this whole thing wide open. If it was a trap, it could finish me off. Either way, my finger hovered over the trackpad and I knew everything was about to change. The leaked file was like holding a live wire. Page after page, employee names, timestamps, internal tool references, and diagrams of how Verdict Tech system actually functioned. Spelled out in excruciating detail that a single false flag from any source automatically triggered their highest risk classification. And once that label went on, their system broadcast it to every subscribed client within minutes. No review, no verification, no off switch. I didn't hesitate. I forwarded it to Logan immediately. For 4 days, he practically disappeared, buried in the data. He tore through the metadata, verified the employee names, dug into Verdict's own developer forums where some of the listed tools had been quietly discussed. By the end, he was sure the document was real. What it revealed was devastating. No human review process at all. No built-in way to correct errors once they entered the system. Internal notes acknowledging the flaws, but still marketing the product as comprehensive and accurate. Tao took Logan's findings and built a diagram so clean it was terrifying. On one side, the false flag arrow showed it hitting Verdict's central database being assigned the highest risk score and then shooting out through automated API subscriptions to hundreds of brands and platforms. On the other side, instant fallout brands' internal dashboards would light up red, their systems would automatically trigger termination protocols, and no one, no intern, no manager, no legal team, ever saw the person's name before the hammer dropped. From first error to total destruction, under 6 hours. Brand deals gone. Platforms banned the account. Payments frozen. Life over. Looking at the diagram, you couldn't even call it a glitch. It was designed that way, speed over accuracy, plausible deniability built into every step. Isabel's jaw tightened as she studied it. "We're done going around the edges," she said. "It's time to confront the brands directly with this." And for the first time, I felt something sharper than fear stirring in my chest. Not just survival, retaliation. I drove out to the headquarters of the makeup brand suing me for $3 million. The glass tower glinted in the sunlight exactly the way it had when I'd walked through its doors as a prized partner just 6 months earlier. Back then, they'd greeted me with champagne. Now, I was clutching a folder stuffed with evidence, my palms damp, my stomach tight. Inside the lobby, I forced a smile at the receptionist and asked to see their brand partnership director. She recognized me instantly. Her expression iced over. She picked up the phone and murmured something I couldn't catch. 2 security guards appeared within minutes, looming behind me like shadows while I stood there waiting. When the partnership director finally came down, she wouldn't even look me in the eye. She kept edging backward every time I tried to show her the papers. I raised the documents, highlighted codes from Verdict Tech, proof I'd been flagged by mistake, and started to explain, my voice cracking from exhaustion. She cut me off mid-sentence. "We can't discuss anything," she said, her tone clipped. "We're bound by an NDA with Verdict Tech." I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Have you ever verified the claims before destroying someone's career?" I asked on camera. Her eyes flicked to the guards. That was all it took. They grabbed my arms and dragged me toward the exit while I kept filming, still asking why they trusted an algorithm over 3 years of working together. They shoved me out the door and told me I was banned from the property. Later, Isabel watched the footage. "Good documentation," she said quietly, "but we need a new strategy. Direct confrontation isn't working." She suggested we go public, release a carefully written statement showing the evidence without making accusations that could get us sued. For the next 2 days, we worked side by side on a Medium post. Isabel scrutinized every line to make sure it told the truth without crossing legal tripwires. I uploaded screenshots of the termination emails with matching codes highlighted, the leaked Verdict Tech documents with employee names blacked out, and Tao's diagram showing how a single error spread like wildfire. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type as I wrote the final section about losing my home and family to a computer glitch. I stared at the publish button for 20 minutes, heart pounding. This could either clear my name or hand them new ammo. Finally, I clicked. The view counter ticked up immediately. Within 3 hours, the algorithm report had picked up the story. Then another blog. And another. By that evening, 5 different sites had written about my case. Comments were vicious. Half accused me of lying, saying I was making excuses for some unnamed crime. The other half poured out their own stories, people banned, fired, erased by automated systems they couldn't fight. Someone dug up my old Instagram posts and started a thread trying to guess what triggered the system. Others were analyzing the leaked code like amateur detectives, comparing it to other tech company leaks. The next morning, my inbox held a new message, an email from Verdict Tech's legal team with a cease and desist attached. They claimed I'd violated confidentiality by publishing their internal documents and threatened to sue for damages if I didn't take the post down immediately. Isabel read it, smirked, and said, "This is pure intimidation. They don't have a case. What we're doing falls under whistleblower protection." She drafted a response asserting our right to expose a system that had wrecked lives and careers. Meanwhile, Logan's investigation had turned up 2 more influencers with the same risk codes, the same timing, the same harassment. They were terrified to go public but agreed to talk on background. Their termination letters, their police reports, even the coffee attacks matched mine. One of them had lost custody of her children because her ex used the false accusations in court. Tao dug even deeper into verdict text files and uncovered something huge. Inside their internal chat logs was a category called PR2, supposedly for flagging predatory behavior. But the detection system wasn't reading content at all, it was matching partial usernames. If someone called Predator Gaming got flagged, anyone with PR anywhere in their handle could be caught in the same net. My old high school gaming account had been predict this. That alone was enough to trigger their highest risk classification. Isabel took the new evidence and filed formal complaints with 3 different state agencies for unfair business practices and consumer fraud. She attached everything: the leaked files, the matching codes, the screenshots of how Verdict knew their system was broken but kept selling it anyway. Complaints were public record, so journalists could access them. A local newspaper reporter reached out. She'd covered the coffee shop attack when it happened and wanted to follow up. We met at a diner, and I told her everything: sleeping in my car, my parents' house vandalized, losing every source of income overnight. 2 days later, her article went live. When algorithms destroy lives. Showed the police reports, the brick through my motel window, the human toll. Comments were different this time. Less venom, more doubt. People started asking if maybe I'd been telling the truth all along. But within hours, new rumors began surfacing on gossip forums, claims I'd done unspeakable things no one had ever accused me of before. Reika saw the pattern instantly. "They're seeding fresh accusations," she said, muddying the water like they always do when someone gains traction. She pulled up old court documents on her laptop, showing me the lawsuit she'd filed against 3 platforms and Verdict Tech 2 years ago. She'd spent $40,000 on lawyers, fought through 12 months of depositions and motions, then run out of money and had to drop the case. In the corner of her apartment sat boxes full of discovery documents proving the system was broken, evidence no judge would review without proper legal representation. Reika warned me, even if we won, our names might never be fully cleared. The internet never forgets. But fighting back still mattered, for the next person erased by these systems. The next morning, Isabel called with a spark of hope. 3 UCLA law students wanted to help prepare subpoenas for their clinic credits. They arrived at her office with laptops and legal pads, eager to work on something real instead of mock trials. We spent 6 hours going through every document, building a database of evidence, drafting preservation letters for every company that had cut ties with me. Isabel's students dug up legal precedent for algorithmic harm cases and started crafting arguments about negligent data practices and defamation through automated systems. We sent certified letters to 37 companies demanding they preserve all records related to my account termination and risk scores. 48 hours later, Verdict Tech's legal team called Isabel's office requesting a confidential discussion about potential resolution. Their lawyer hinted at a settlement if we signed comprehensive NDAs silencing us forever. Isabel hung up. 3 days later, a different lawyer called back, sounding nervous. In trying to reassure Isabel, he accidentally let slip that Verdict Tech had deployed an entity conflation fix to their systems last month that affected numerous accounts. He wouldn't confirm I was one of them, but the timing lined up perfectly with when some of the harassment against me started dying down. Isabel recorded the call legally and added it to our evidence file. Then, on a random Tuesday morning, I opened Instagram and nearly dropped my phone. My account no longer said permanently banned. It now showed temporary suspension with a review date 6 months out. My followers were still gone, my content wiped, but the change meant one thing: they knew they'd made a mistake. They were quietly trying to walk it back without admitting fault. Isabel had a friend who managed properties and didn't care about internet drama, just reliable tenants. She vouched for me, and I signed a lease for a small studio in Koreatown, paying 3 months up front with money I'd borrowed from our encrypted group's emergency fund. Moving my few possessions out of my car into an actual apartment felt surreal. I set up a mattress on the floor, hung my 3 remaining outfits in the empty closet. A door that locked. A shower that worked. Felt like reclaiming a piece of my humanity. While Isabel's assistant reviewed the lawsuit updates, she noticed something strange. 3 of the smaller brands had quietly withdrawn from the suit, dropping the damages claim from $3 million to $500,000. She checked court records. The withdrawal happened the same week Verdict Tech announced their system updates. Then, finally, a call from the detective who'd been taking my harassment reports. Good news. They'd arrested the person who'd thrown coffee in my face, matching them to 2 other attacks on different influencers through footage and witness statements. The local news showed them being led away in handcuffs. For the first time in months, I felt like I was seeing justice instead of punishment. Logan's big investigation went live at midnight on a Thursday on a major tech site. He'd spent weeks fact-checking every detail and having it legally reviewed. The article documented in black and white how risk feed systems destroy lives. It included screenshots of the leaked verdict tech documents, key sections highlighted showing how their broken classification system spread false flags across hundreds of platforms simultaneously. By morning, it had over 1 million views, tech insiders debating the dangers of automated reputation systems in the comments. Tao texted me that night. 3 of his former colleagues at Verdict had reached out after reading the article. They admitted they knew the PRED2 classification system was misfiring, but management ignored their concerns because fixing it would mean admitting liability. One sent internal emails showing employees had raised red flags about false positives months before I got canceled. Another said they tried to build safeguards but were overruled because it would slow down scanning and make the product less competitive. They all felt guilty but were too scared of lawsuits and blacklisting to go public. The next week, Reka organized a video call with 12 other victims. We spent 3 hours sharing what had worked and what hadn't, templates for data requests that actually got responses, lists of lawyers who wouldn't hang up, spreadsheets tracking which platforms responded to which legal threats. We built a shared folder of everything we'd learned, including contacts for journalists who'd taken us seriously and warnings about lawyers who'd taken money then disappeared. I backed it all up in multiple places. Maybe the next person erased overnight would find a roadmap waiting instead of a void. 2 days later, Verdict Tech issued a press release about enhancing data verification and improving accuracy in their risk assessment tools. They never mentioned us or admitted fault, but the timing was obvious. The statement was full of corporate speak about excellence and continuous improvement, but buried in paragraph 4 was a line about discontinuing certain legacy classification systems identified as potentially problematic. Logan texted me a screenshot, key sentence highlighted. 3 of his sources confirmed it was damage control after our evidence reached their biggest clients. That weekend, I finally let the truth settle in. My influencer career was gone. Permanently. I had to build something else. I updated my resume under a fake name, focusing on the skills I'd honed: content scheduling, analytics, community management, leaving out anything that tied me to my real identity. The few interviews I landed always ended the same. They'd Google me, faces would shift from friendly to uneasy, and the conversation would end early. Then Reka called. She knew someone who needed social media help for a small specialty tea importer. They didn't care about my past as long as I could do the work. I met the owner at a coffee shop, showed him a portfolio of anonymous projects I'd done for other victims. He offered me 20 hours a week at just above minimum wage. I accepted immediately, grateful for any income that didn't require explaining myself or risking a background check. Managing their accounts from my little apartment felt strange but safe. Just posting product photos, answering customer comments, tracking simple metrics. No more followers in the millions. No more brand trips. Just tea and a quiet calendar. One afternoon, while scheduling posts about a new green tea blend, my phone buzzed. A text from my sister. "Can we talk?" She'd read Logan's article. She wanted to understand what had really happened, though she was careful to set boundaries. We agreed to one phone call. For an hour, I explained the technical side of verdict systems, avoiding the emotional wreckage of being abandoned. She listened, asked a few questions, then said she needed time to process before we spoke again. 2 weeks later, Isabel filed our lawsuit, zeroing in on the entity conflation that had destroyed our lives, with measurable damages from false data sold as fact. She'd found 3 technical experts ready to testify about how Verdict's system couldn't distinguish between similar usernames, treating anyone with vaguely matching handles as the same person. The filing was dense with data processing details, probability matching, and the absence of human verification before ruining someone's reputation. "This could set precedent," Isabel said quietly. "Hold them accountable for selling automated lies as verified risk assessments." Then came the podcast invitation through our support network. A host covering tech accountability wanted to hear from someone who'd lived through algorithmic destruction. I spent a week practicing how to tell my story without naming anyone who could sue, even though every word was true. I recorded in my closet with blankets hung to kill the echo. For 2 hours, I talked about what it felt like to wake up and find your life erased by invisible systems no one would admit existed. The host sent me the edit before it went live. 45 minutes of my voice explaining how data errors become permanent truth when enough companies buy the same false information. When the episode dropped, dozens of people wrote in with their own stories: unexplained bans, mysterious blacklisting, careers ruined by ghosts in the machine. Sitting at my little desk, surrounded by legal files and printed emails, I realized something. I wasn't vindicated. I wasn't restored. But I was surviving. I had a roof, a job, and real allies who understood. Most importantly, I finally had proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that I wasn't evil. Just another casualty of a broken system companies kept using because fixing it would mean admitting they'd been selling lies as truth. And maybe, just maybe, we were finally forcing them to look.
Thanks for watching. Today's train wreck is over, but tomorrow's ride is already on track. Subscribe so you don't miss it.